Hi guys, we are in second semester of Junior Language Arts Online. Welcome to second semester. We're going to start a new unit right off the bat on satire. And whenever you think satire, think like late night television with Jimmy Fallon where they're making fun of a bunch of different situations. Satire is meant to be like funny. It's meant to make fun of something. So you're either funny like haha or you're funny like making fun of somebody, which isn't so nice, but it's used a lot in literature. So we're going to do this unit on satire. So pull up Springboard Activity 3.15. You don't have to do anything in this Springboard activity, but I do want you to know the terms that it lists here because you guys are going to be creating your own satire next week. So you guys are going to be writing your own satire. So you're going to want to pay attention to these terms because you're going to be using them, and also pay attention to the assignments that we're doing because then you can kind of like model your embedded assessment after some of the things that you've seen. All right. So the first term is irony. We know about irony. We talked about it last semester. Irony is when you like expect one thing to happen but another happens. Like a fire department catching on fire is ironic. You wouldn't expect a fire department of all things to go up in flames. Then there's hyperbole, which is an exaggeration. So when you are deliberately exaggerating something like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die if Miss Chronister asks me to do one more assignment, you're not going to die. That's an exaggeration. That's hyperbolic. It's hyperbole. This one's kind of new. Litotes. This is like it's the opposite of hyperbole. So litotes are, honestly, I don't even know if I'm saying that right because I've heard that word used so little. But it's the opposite of a hyperbole. That's when you do an understatement. So whereas a hyperbole is an exaggeration, litotes are an understatement to kind of make fun of it. Like I have an example here. The grave's a fine and private place. Well, that's kind of an understatement. Grave is where you like go when you die. So it's kind of making fun of the situation by saying it's such a private place. Then there's caricatures. That's when you kind of exaggerate one thing about a person. We see these a lot in political cartoons, like they might exaggerate somebody's ears or somebody's nose. When we see political cartoons of Trump, for example, they always like exaggerate his crazy hair. Wit is clever expression. So maybe we've all been witty, or we know somebody who's witty. You usually make people laugh with your wit. It's just like cleverness. Sarcasm, you're all teenagers, so you guys are experts at sarcasm, right? That's when you are intentionally like making fun of something or being like, oh my gosh. Ridicule is usually intended to be directed at a person. So you're ridiculing a person or you're ridiculing an idea where you're like criticizing it. You're being really critical. Some of the other things can be funny, but ridicule is usually one where you're like making fun of somebody. There's a difference there, right? A parody, that's like what we see on Saturday Night Live. We like make fun of a situation or imitate something to ridicule what's happening or ridicule that person. And then invective. This is probably a new one for you guys. This is like the meanest one. This is where you have speech where you're intentionally cutting down somebody. So you're really attacking them is what you're trying to do when you're using invective. All right. So those are terms that we see in satirical pieces. So be keeping those in mind because you guys are going to be writing your own piece, and we're also going to be looking at a bunch of works and looking for those things in these works. So the first piece that we're going to look at is called Let's Hear It for the Cheerleaders. So if you pull up Springboard Activity 3.16, you're going to read that. Let's hear it for the cheerleaders. This is a piece of satire, so they're making fun of cheerleaders. So if you are a cheerleader, don't take it personally, or if you know a cheerleader. But your job is to find at least 3 pieces of satire within this article. So be looking for a time where they use hyperbole, or a time where you see sarcasm, or a time where you see they're making a parody of the situation. And you guys are going to write that down in the graphic organizer. So you're going to write down in the first column the line. So you're going to write down a quote where they've used some sort of satire. Then in the middle, column, you're going to identify what technique. Was it a hyperbole? Was it irony? What did they use? And then in the last column, in the third column over, you're going to say, what is the implied message? What are they trying to say about cheerleaders by using this satirical technique? So there's an example here for you. The first example says, perhaps some razor wire and a warning sign saying, danger, cheerleaders ahead. So you'll see that line in there. So that's a humorous passage or a time where they've used satire. The technique they used was hyperbole, irony, and vivid imagery to create this ridiculous picture that cheerleaders are a threat and we need some warning when they're going to be in a place that we might be going to. The implied message seems to suggest that cheerleaders are somehow dangerous. All right. So follow that example and find 3 more humorous passages where the author uses satire and fill in that graphic organizer. All right. After you do that, you're going to write a paragraph. Okay. So you can use the same quotes that you just put in that graphic organizer in your paragraph. So the paragraph should come pretty easy. Your job in this paragraph, just has to be about 5 sentences, is to explain how Let's Hear It for the Cheerleaders is a satirical piece. So you're going to tell me how this piece is satirical. All right. So in your topic sentence, just tell me that this piece is a satire because it uses blank and blank satirical techniques. So just list a couple satirical techniques that you saw. I'm getting sick of saying the word satirical. That's like kind of a mouthful. Then you're going to have a text detail. So pull a quote. You just wrote 3 of them. So you can pull one of those quotes. In your commentary, say how that quote is satirical and tell me the effect that it had. What was the author implying? Then you're going to pull another quote and then tell me why that was satirical and what the author was implying with it. And then in your conclusion sentence, just wrap up the overall effect and message of the piece. What was the author trying to get across to us? All right, 5 sentences. You'd already done most of the work in the graphic organizer, so that should be pretty easy. Speaking of easy, Activity 3.17, I'm not going to make you guys do. So you guys can skip Springboard Activity 3.17 and move on to Activity 3.18. All right, so pull that up. You are going to read Girl Moved to Tears by Of Mice and Men Cliff Notes. So this girl reads just the Cliff Notes to Of Mice and Men, and she's moved to tears. So already we see this sarcasm in the title, right? And your job is going to be to do pretty much the same thing as you did with the cheerleader piece, but you're not going to do the graphic organizer. You're just going to do the writing prompt. So you're going to write a paragraph analyzing the satirical techniques in that passage. All right. So I've got the format there for you. Your topic sentence can be to state the purpose of the article and what the author is criticizing. What is he critiquing here? What is he being critical of? Quote. Give me a quote that shows some satire from the text. So pull a quote from that article of The Girl Moved to Tears by Of Mice and Men Cliff Notes. Give me some commentary explaining that quote, what was implied by that quote, what was the author trying to say with the satire. Then do it again. Another quote that shows how this is like a parody. I guess it gets more specific here. I messed up. You guys are specifically supposed to look how that article is a parody. Good thing I have my notes here. So also while you're reading that, be paying attention to how it's a parody, because they specifically wanted you to speak to how it's a parody in your paragraph. That's why I have this outline here where it says you need a quote that shows how this is a parody of a newspaper article. So the whole thing is set up like it's a news article, like somebody's reporting on this. So pick a time where you can tell where they're like making a parody of a newspaper article, where they're emulating what a newspaper would do. And then give me commentary that explains how it's a parody of the newspaper. So how is it like a newspaper, and what the author is trying to achieve with that? Why is he trying to make it like a newspaper article? How is he like making fun of the situation with that? All right. So as you read that, be looking for the similarities between this and a newspaper article, which we just looked at in last semester, and that'll help you write this paragraph. Then wrap it all up with a conclusion, just one final sentence that states what the satire in this piece was meant to imply. All right. Now, last thing this week that you're going to do, Springboard Activity 3.19. you guys are going to write your own parody. So you just saw that, you just read that parody of the newspaper article. Now you guys are going to write your own parody. And before you get freaked out, because that might sound intimidating, read in depth but shallowly. So there we've got a little irony in the title. Read that and know all the times you notice how this is a parody of other news shows. So there's like a script, you'll see like a script of like two people talking back and forth. So note how this is a parody of like a news show, so two people talking on a news show. You're gonna write your own parody, so be paying attention to what they do there so you can kind of replicate it. So it says to pick some type of TV show. It could be any type of TV show. It could be like a soap opera. It could be, they've listed CSI. It could be a kid's show. It could be one of those corny family shows. It could be a horror movie. I think that one might actually be the easiest one to do. So you're going to pick some format, one of those formats. It could be like The View, like a daytime talk show. And you are going to write your own parody. So make sure you're using satirical techniques. Just to use the example of a horror movie, like think about what usually happens at horror movies. Like the girls screaming, there's like some cute girl and she gets killed right off the bat. There's some like creepy dude lurking in the shadows outside the house. They're out in a cabin in the woods. Like there's all these stereotypical things of these shows that you can make fun of, right? If you're doing like one of those corny family shows, there's always like this perfect little family, and then like some kid does something bad, and then in the end there's like this beautiful music in the background and they're like rehashing the lesson learned or whatever. So think about the things that make those shows stereotypical, and then you're going to make fun of it. All right, so you're going to write like your own script, just like you saw in that news article where the characters are going back and forth. I think this would be easiest to do with a horror movie because they're just so stereotypical. And you're going to create your own scripts. Like maybe like they're in a cabin in the woods and they're all alone, and then they hear these crazy noises, and then there's this girl screaming, and then she runs upstairs, because that's of course what they always do. They run upstairs when they're in danger, and then you're like, why are you running upstairs? So basically you're going to make fun of those shows. All right? So that's the last assignment you have for this week. I want that to be about a page long, double-spaced 12-point font. So get that finished up. If you need any help with that, if you're struggling, you don't know what to do, reach out to me and we can sit down and write it together, or we can talk on the phone or email back and forth, whatever we need to do, so you guys can get off to a great start this semester. And I will see you next week. All right, bye-bye.